Welcome back into Heating Up, episode 15. We're recording this on the last day of February on a Monday night. And I think I was titling this SEC Roadkill, and I think Cody changed it to Auburn Roadkill and Bama Rolling. So I guess we'll jump into it that way. If you're listening on audio only, Alex Maston here, and then Drew and Riley Norris. I think I'm outnumbered for the first time this year. I'm a little worried about
I
that.
believe so too. Usually I'm on that end of the boat.
So we're getting ready to talk a little recap of the weekend, talk a little rankings and see some movement there. And then we'll jump into kind of looking forward to the last weekend of the season. And like I sent y'all some notes earlier, I've been in the cave. I've been digging. I think I've got Auburn's offense figured out. I'm ready to go on that. But before we get there, if you're watching this video on YouTube, please click the subscribe button. If we can get some more folks on there, we start showing up in the searches more often. So y'all check us out there. And a little high school basketball news. I did an interview with Gunnersville girls coach Kenny Hill. If y'all hadn't gotten a chance to watch that, I think you'd really like it. Any basketball guys would like it. Kenny played at Scottsboro in high school, and then went and played at Mercer for a few years. So a good basketball player in his own right. And he left the Scottsboro boys job, his alma mater, to take the Gunnersville girls job. So I thought that was kind of interesting. He talks about it. He ends up getting to coach his daughter. He said that was a big part of it, but he said, hey, I've been coaching boys for 18 years. I want to do something different. So in year 2, he's already got them going to the Final Four. We'll have the Gunnersville girls on Power 107.5 Wednesday afternoon. So if you're interested in that, go to the 20-minute shot clock or WKXX Fox Sports 102.9. You'll be able to find it. But jumping into college, let's jump right into Saturday's games a little bit. So in the SEC, home teams went 5-2 on Saturday, including the big ones. Arkansas knocks off Kentucky. Tennessee knocks off Auburn. The only road wins were Florida over Georgia, Texas A&M over Ole Miss. Let me just throw that right to Riley. Tell me what's the big deal about away games? Why is it so difficult to win a road game on the road in the SEC?
I mean, obviously the atmosphere plays a big part. The home team's atmosphere. I mean, if you look at Kentucky's home games, Arkansas's home games, Auburn, I mean, all the big time places you play on the road. And I think it does play a factor. I mean, I think some people ask me, like, you go to Auburn, how much is the crowd worth? I mean, the crowd's worth another. I mean, think about 6 to 8 points just by the momentum. Basketball is a game of momentums. Game of momentum. So, I mean, I figured, if you get a couple stops, couple easy transition baskets, it's going to play a factor into maybe the other team shooting a bad shot or turning over again, as you see. But it's a big factor. I mean, it goes to show. I saw a stat today. I think it's like the top 4 SEC teams are 70 some or 80 something and 1 in the SEC this year.
You know what that one loss is too?
Yeah, it was
Hofstra beat Arkansas at Arkansas.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
that's the one loss that those 4 teams have. It's incredible. So let me ask you this before we get into it too much more. Thinking about, tournament plays coming up, is it more about, like, say, an Auburn isn't as good at home, or is it more about how difficult it is at somebody's place? Like, are you getting that much juice at home? And so when it gets to a neutral court, tell me the factors there. Is it more about how hard it is to play at somebody else's place, or is it about how hard it is just not playing at your own gym and getting your own boost?
I think it's a little of both. I think you feel more comfortable because you play and practice every day in the gym. Whereas the teams coming on the road, they may have shoot around the night before or the morning of, but I mean, you play in there maybe once a year. So you may not be familiar with, I mean, it could be as little as the depth perception or the lights, some gyms are brighter than others, but I definitely think it's a little bit of both. And as a home team, I mean, you're comfortable, the atmosphere, you're obviously getting the momentum. When good things happen for you, the crowd gets behind you and they can affect the other team. But as the other team, you still get adrenaline, you still get hyped up. But sometimes you have to channel that emotion and make it into positive emotion. But I think it's a little bit of both.
Drew, let me throw the basketball question to you, the actual basketball. I know it's been kind of a joke in Auburn circles for a couple years that Auburn does not play well with Nike basketballs. And sure enough, like, every loss this year has been playing somewhere with a Nike basketball. Back in the day, Auburn used to use these Under Armour balls, and I thought that was a huge advantage because nobody used those things.
yeah.
But they ended up switching to Wilson, and a lot of teams use Wilson except those like Nike Premier home games, like in Alabama, Florida.
Yeah.
Arkansas, that kind of thing.
Tennessee.
You think there's anything about the basketball?
I don't know. These guys, they play with pretty much any kind of basketball you can think of from when they started till now. But I have see what this topic brought up all over Twitter, especially in the Auburn crowd, because y'all, like you said, you play with a Wilson basketball at home, and y'all play awesome at home, and then 90% of the schools in the SEC are Nike sponsored teams, so you go to their gym and you play with a different ball. It may have a little impact, but I think in the vast majority of things, it's a basketball is a basketball, and these guys they can shoot it whether it's those old rubber hard outdoor balls we have, or if it's a new leather Nike ball. I don't think it has as big of an impact as you would think, but it's a good talking point.
Any
I
thoughts
think,
on that, Riley?
yeah, to go to your point, like I know when we used to go on the road or get ready, like to go to Auburn or go to the worst place, the ball we used to play with was Adidas ball at Mississippi State. It was
Do
so
those even
bad. Like,
exist anymore?
no, I think they changed to the Wilson like Auburn has. But no, we would practice in the days leading up. We would get Wilson balls in there, or like I said, if it was Adidas balls. I think maybe A&M was Adidas. Either way, but I mean, you get used to it. It is a little different at first, but I mean, you shoot with it for 2 days and then shoot around, and you kind of get used to. I mean, you think about it, the NCAA tournaments, the Wilson. So all these guys that play with Nike all year, they have to change over to Wilson for the tournament. So I mean, you get used to it.
The more I've been thinking about it too is I feel like the type of team a little bit. Auburn has turned into a defense and they're not a 3-point shooting team. Obviously, that's what they're struggling with. But I feel like those type teams, there's been some Kentucky teams the past few years that are really good defensively. There's been some Tennessee teams that are really good defensively. Last year's Alabama team was really good defensively. I think those teams are going to translate better into the weird gyms. You play in some of these big arenas, and the sight lines are kind of weird. I think those kind of teams are going to translate more than the high caliber 3-point shooting teams anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the strategy or the saying is defense travels. So you can always count on that defense. I mean, if you're not making shots, but if you can hold teams within 65 or 70, you got a good shot at winning.
So getting back into the Roadkill Saturday, I know everybody knows this if you're a college basketball fan, but if you're just an Auburn or an Alabama fan listening, road losses in the top 25 this weekend. Number 1, Gonzaga. Number 2, Arizona. Number 3, Auburn. Number 4, Purdue. Number 5, Kansas. Number 6, Kentucky. Number 9, Texas Tech. And number 22 on Sunday, Ohio State. The new AP top 25, Gonzaga stays at 1. Arizona stays at 2, even though it's kind of an ugly loss for them at Colorado. It may not even be a tournament team. I was a little surprised by that. Baylor jumps all the way to number 3 after their win against Kansas. They're playing Texas right now at Texas in the last home game in their arena. Did y'all even realize Texas was building a new arena?
No, I didn't know that either.
I just heard it. They just turned the game on. I was listening a minute ago. So that's the SEC get another nice place to play. I'm sure Texas spent $1 billion, literally probably $1 billion.
Oh, yeah.
And their gym was nice. I mean, their gym was pretty nice. I mean, it was older, but it was huge. They had a nice
Texas
arena.
always comes up with some reason then they're not winning. They fire a coach and they spend $1 jillion dollars on a coach. They change facilities. They're changing conferences. At some point, it's not all that stuff's fault at Texas.
Exactly.
That's right.
Let's see. Duke jumps into the top 10 with a win at Syracuse. I'm not sure really how impressive that win is. I don't think Syracuse is very good. Auburn drops down to 5, Kansas 6, Kentucky 7, and then staying in the SEC. Tennessee at 13, Arkansas tied for 14 with Houston, and number 25, Alabama. Real quick before we get to Alabama, since y'all have seen a good bit of Arkansas and Houston, I know it's been a little while. How do you think about those two teams being tied at 14? I think that's kind of an interesting. They're kind of similar in some ways.
Yeah, both teams very tough defensively. They kind of feeds their offense. Kind of two different dynamics as far as how they guard you, but both of them have big guards, big posts. Very active, very athletic. So it is, and their teams you're going to see. I think in the tournament. Arkansas made an Elite 8 run last year, Houston Final Four. And I think they'll kind of have that same mold this year. Of course, where you are in the bracket and your matchups and all that have a big play into that. But, they're like you said earlier, those teams that have that defense to rely on, they can kind of make those runs and stay in games even when they're having bad offensive side of games. And I think you'll see kind of the same thing this year as long as they keep that momentum that they have going right now.
So what's the reaction to Alabama being at 25? It seems like they lost a game and they jumped a couple spots, and then they win 2 games and fall back a couple spots. What was the initial reaction when you saw 25?
AP
Not
poll
that it
really
matters at all.
Yeah,
I
I was
know
about
it
to say,
doesn't matter at
it
all.
don't really have any effect on anything, but it does make you wonder kind of how it all goes into play, like especially with so many teams losing. Now I know the top six, they kind of canceled each other out by all losing. So for Auburn, if you're going to lose on a day that the top six teams lose too. Um, but yeah, like Bama's ranked 24th. They kind of blow a South Carolina team out that's been playing pretty good lately, and then they drop one spot in the AP poll. It's kind of weird. I'm not really sure what led to it or what, but it was surprising for sure.
I know that it don't, like you said, it kind of really doesn't matter at this point in the season. But it was interesting because I watched the Ohio State Maryland game. I watched the end of it, and Ohio State was ranked 22nd. They lose to Maryland. Maryland's 13-15 on the year. They lose to Maryland by 15 points, and they drop one spot in the ranking. Now I do realize they beat Illinois on the road earlier in the week, and they might not beat Indiana or somebody. But if you lose to a team that's 13-15 by 15 points, I figure you drop at least more than one spot. So
I feel like
I
you're
mean,
getting more credit for big wins right now than bad
yeah,
losses. Is that pretty fair
sure,
to say?
yeah,
Oh, for
no, I would
sure,
agree.
and that's what I think. That's even in the net too. Like
Don't get
Arkansas,
me started on the net. I don't understand it at all.
but
Yeah, I
like
know.
Arkansas, and Kentucky this weekend or this week. Arkansas beats Kentucky. Kentucky may have dropped a spot or two, whereas Arkansas stayed put. They didn't hardly move, and they got a big
Think,
top
yeah.
5 win against Kentucky, or top 6 win. So it's very weird how it works.
Hmm.
Well, then jumping into the bracketology a little bit, there's really no point in talking about rankings now that we've got more of the bracketology stuff out. And we had a guy on our live show 102.9 today. I can't think of the guy's name, but it's called bracketeer.com. And he said usually game to game, he doesn't redo his whole rank or his whole draft board. It's like, look at the results, wins and losses, and maneuver there. He said after Saturday, he just had to blow it up completely. And he literally went in and looked at every single team's resume, completely new, completely blind, and redid it. Said, I hope everybody's doing that. I know it probably takes a lot of time, but I think you had to
Yeah.
do that after the bloody Saturday. But I'm going to run down
Mhm.
Lenardi because I think that's probably the guy with the most credibility. He's like 95% right in his career. The one
Yeah.
seeds going in order. And that's what I like about him too, is he gives you the 1 seed and the 4th 1 seed. So you kind of have an idea
Mhm.
where you are on that S curve.
Yeah.
And so going in order, it was Gonzaga, Arizona, Kansas, and Baylor. Big 12 getting a lot of love. 2 seeds, Auburn, Kentucky, Duke, and Purdue. And then I mentioned the other SEC teams. Tennessee with a 3 seed. Alabama stays at 5 seed. Arkansas is a 5 seed. So that's a little lower than I thought. They may have jumped up a little bit, but like Drew saying, not as much credit for that win. And then they've got LSU in the tournament, but not in the top 5 seeds. And in the next 4 out, he had Florida. So the major bubble, the only bubble team was Florida. Those 6 SEC teams securely in. Anything catch y'all's eye about the tournament seedings at all?
Not really. I think they're pretty accurate and kind of how we see it in the SEC as well. You got your top 5 teams, top 6 teams really, and then everyone else has been, like Florida has shown really good signs. Like for instance, when they played y'all, but they've also, earlier that week lost to A&M, who was on like a 9-10 game losing streak. So the back and forth that they've had all year has kind of been questioned, and probably is why they're on the edge. And then teams like South Carolina and A&M and Vandy, they don't really have a strong resume, and SEC play is a long season. You get that wear and tear, so you'll have teams like South Carolina go on good runs and stuff like that. But I think it's pretty accurate to how, or at least I vision the SEC, how it's played out so far.
Riley, any thoughts on Arkansas being a 5 seed, a little bit like I think 1 spot lower than Alabama?
Yeah, I thought they would be at least maybe the top 5 seed, or even I think yeah, like you said, they were right there with Alabama in the middle of the 5 seeds, or maybe a 4 seed. I thought they've had some good wins throughout the year. Obviously, beating Auburn and beat Tennessee at home, and then they beat Kentucky this week. But they've been winning. I mean, they've been hot as of late. I'm surprised. I mean, before it's said and done, they maybe jumped up to the 4th seed. But like you said, Florida's got a chance to. They got at Vanderbilt, I know, during the week, and then they're Kentucky at home, I believe. So they got a chance to. I mean, that Kentucky game's huge, but this Vanderbilt, they can't overlook Vanderbilt. If they overlook Vanderbilt, then their season's over with. I mean, they'll have to win the SEC tournament, but there's a chance for Florida to get in. Obviously, it's kind of weird. I've been on the bubble. I think the last year I was at Alabama, we were like the first team out of the tournament, so we were right the next one in. So you're kind of wishing these other teams would lose, but at the same time, you got to be focused and take care of business at hand.
How much are you watching? So I know a lot of the smaller conferences start this week, and there's always that term of bid stealers. You know, you want that one really good team in the conference to go ahead and win their conference tournament so they gets in. If you're a team on the bubble and you're playing for a Florida, are you keeping an eye on those tournaments, or you think the coaching staff's keeping an eye on that?
Yeah, I think in the back of their mind, obviously they're preparing for your opponent ahead, but for the Murray States that have been ranked in the top 25 all year, they need to win the conference. But those teams, it hurts because there will be one or two of those teams a year that will lose in the conference tournament. They'll still have an outright bid to the tournament, so it takes them, at large away.
And shout out to our guys, our flagship team on Fox Sports 102.9, the Jacksonville State Gamecocks, the number 1 seed in their conference tournament, the A-Sun. And that's kind of funny. Well, you get to host until the championship game. So they've got like 2 or 3 games that they could win and be playing at Jacksonville. And I'm not sure where the championship was. That's a big advantage there.
That is a big advantage.
Just kind of keeping an eye on that bubble. Also, I went ahead and wrote down the 4 teams that I thought in the SEC had any chance of being on the bubble. And like we said, Florida was the only one Lenardi had in his either 4 out or next 4 out. And I'm going to say their overall record, just to kind of keep you an eye, because I always kind of feel like that 20-win mark is where you got to get close to. And so I don't know about their strength of schedule. I think that may be what hit Arkansas a little bit. I think they had kind of a weak strength of schedule, and they dropped a couple like that Hofstra game early. So I'm not going to speak to that, but Florida at 18-11, and like Riley said, they're at Vandy and then Kentucky at home. I mean, I feel like that's a pretty good situation. Like maybe you'd rather have that game at home against Vandy just to make you feel a little better about that win, but getting an opportunity against Kentucky with a price on their head and you're more motivated, like especially if Auburn wraps up the conference before Saturday, Wheeler and Washington banged up. I mean, if I'm Florida, I feel pretty good about that. Mississippi State 17-12 on the year. Their last 2 games are Auburn and at Texas A&M. So obviously a win over Auburn would give them a little bit of a boost to be back in the mix. South Carolina 17-11. Their last 2 games are Missouri at home. So a little bit of a trap game for them there. And then at Auburn. So another team Auburn's having to play where it's like they're playing for their lives. And then Texas A&M is still at 18-11. They had that weak conference or non-conference schedule. They go to Alabama and then Mississippi State at home. So maybe if they could pick up an Alabama win, they're back in the mix. But I feel like Alabama's kind of been the bubble bursters. Vandy was kind of on a run a little bit, and Alabama knocks them off in that close one. South Carolina been playing some good basketball.
Yeah.
Now Alabama
State out.
may have their most – I know those early games are great Alabama games, but since those couple, I feel like that may have been Alabama's best game of the year.
Talking about the South Carolina game?
Yeah, they're just clicking, it seemed like, at least offensively.
Yeah, and that's probably the quickest we jumped on somebody and kind of kept it throughout a whole half, and the first 8 or 9 minutes of the second half was brutal, but they answered back to it. And I saw a tweet the other day, and it said, at the 19-minute mark in the second half, Bama was up like 23. Then at like the 12-minute mark, Bama was up 6.
6, yeah.
And then at like the 5-minute mark, Bama was up 24.
That's Alabama's season in 1 half.
Yeah, it was just crazy how you go from, so hot to so cold to back hot again.
So let's just stay in that. It's Alabama with a 90-71 win over South Carolina, over 11,000 people in the crowd at Coleman Coliseum. I was listening to Oates post game. That was as positive as I've seen him maybe all year, because early in the year, you don't want to get too positive. You don't act like, hey, we got a long way to go, blah, blah, blah. That was as positive as I've seen him play. I almost feel like playing those senior walk-ons to kind of set the tone. At least they're going to play hard. They're going to talk on defense, try to take charges. Do y'all think that had any impact on the game?
Hey, I'm all for starting.
I think it was 12-4 when they came out after 4 minutes.
Yeah, I'm all for starting them if it leads to good starts like that. And, the JQ was on fire and Keon came out and shot the ball well and Shaq was shooting well. That just goes to show you how, JD, he didn't score a lot of points, but I don't know if you
He
know
was
this, but
efficient though.
he's across the board. He was efficient, and Bama right now they're 11-1 when JD scores 10 or more points, which is crazy to think about. Is and you show and the
I
frustrating
wish
thing.
we could see it on shots attempted. Like I wish we could see his record just based on how many times he actually shoots the basketball. Because I don't
Yeah,
feel like there's that many times that he hasn't scored 10 points and he shot 15 times or something,
yeah. He doesn't. It's very low volume of shooting the ball each game, and you see. I mean, there were some tough finishes, man. Like when he's getting downhill, hits that spin move and lays it in and one or something like that. It's just like or blows by a guy and finishes. Like, man, this is what we want all game. And you kind of saw it in the Vandy game. The Vandy game, he struggled offensively, was turning the ball over a lot, but he kept being aggressive, kept playing hard. And that's what we kind of wanted, early in SEC play was we don't care if you turn the ball over, we're going to have growing spurts with you, but just keep being aggressive. And it kind of lets these other guards feed off of it. And I think that's why you've seen really good games. That's 2 good games for JQ in a row. Shaq's played up and down, but when he's on, he's on. And Keon's had really a 3 or 4 game stretch where he's played really well, especially shooting the ball. And it just goes to show you, can these guys are have they hit that level of maturity where they can carry it on, into SEC play and then the NCAA tournament, or are we kind of still in that model where we're up and down and trying to figure it, game to game basis. So it's last 3 out of 5 games have been really good games for us, and hopefully that is a sign of maturity for these guards and the rest of Bama's team.
Riley, what'd you see out of JQ in this one? I know he shot the ball really well. I think he was something like 7 of 9 and maybe 4 or 5 from the 3-point line. Did that get anything else going in his game, you think?
Yeah, it opens up when he's hitting shots from the outside, 4 or 5 from 3. It's up driving lanes to kick and dish, and he's been very good at finding Bidiaco on the lobs and looking for other people. But I've been more so impressed I know the South Carolina game and the Vandy game of his defense, his intensity, guarding the ball, and yeah, he may mess up sometimes, but I think Nate's message came across to the team after the Kentucky loss was, I'm going to play the people that play hard on defense. And if they mess up and they're not trying, they're coming out of the game. And I think that message kind of got across to them. And you saw a different intensity on defense. There's more of an urgency. It's something you haven't seen, in a back-to-back game stretch all year. But no, JQ's being more of a leader as far as offensively and defensively. And that's who they need to be. He shot 9 times when he's so efficient, 7 to 9, that there's not many games we're going to lose when he's shooting 7 to 9 and scoring 20. And still Shaq got 13 shots up and Ellis got 12 shots up. So no, he's been playing well these last 2 games.
I thought they made it easy on Bidiaco. One of y'all mentioned that just a minute ago. He had a very efficient game. It was because the guards made it really easy for him. And I think that's come and go. Some games it's been there this year, some games it hadn't. If I'm just glancing at the box score, I'm seeing 6 minutes from Miles, 10 for Gary, really only 16 from Gurley. Is there any sign of anything going on there with some shifts in minutes? It's kind of a weird game playing the seniors. It was a blowout for a while. I don't think there's too much to be taken from those minutes.
No, and the way those guys are playing, you're going to see those kind of minutes from them. It's kind of playing by committee instead of or playing whoever's playing well. Which Juwan Gary, he starts and we want to play him more, but he's had a really rough go these last 4 or 5 games. Just can't get in the flow of the offense. When we want him to attack, he's not attacking. When we want him to shoot, he's not. I don't know. It's kind of a weird match going with Juwan Gary, but Noah Gurley, he's a guy that's been playing well for us, but just with his foul trouble and stuff, it's still kind of a thing. It's hard to keep him out there. And when Bidiaco is playing as efficient as he has these past couple of games, it's also going to dig into his minutes as well. So I think it's more of just riding the hot hand and, just seeing matchups wise and stuff like that.
I know South Carolina's a good offensive team. You think of Frank Martin and these grind them out teams, but all year long, they've actually been scoring, and Vandy too. So these are 2 good offensive teams that Alabama's played. So I'm not surprised Alabama got going offensively, but their defense has been good, especially at the 3-point line. I was looking, and South Carolina was actually pretty good from 2, and they weren't
Yeah.
terrible from 3, but Alabama was just so much better. Alabama 13 of 33 from 3, while South Carolina was 7 of 21, and then get to the free throw line. South Carolina was 10 of 11 from the line, but then Alabama got there 23 times and made 19 of them. Those are just some small things that Alabama was not doing when they were losing basketball games. And throw on there, they were +8 on the rebounds. So,
I was,
I
I
mean,
was
just
about
an
to
all-around
say,
performance.
yeah, and out of the last 100 free throws Bama's taken, they've hit 81 of them, which is, when you're hitting 81% of your free throws, you're going to win a lot of these games that before you may lose at the end. Those 1-2 possession games where if you would have just hit a couple more free throws here and there, then you would have won them. And I think that's kind of what's translating into this late season run too, is, just stepping up and knocking down shots, knocking down free throws, and helping you later in game situations.
And my last Alabama note is I thought it was pretty interesting that when it got down a little close there, 6, I think it was JD Davison that made a couple plays. He was the guy that brought the energy on both ends of the court. And kind of like we've all said, when he's going really well, I mean, the whole team changes.
For sure.
Yeah, he's very dynamic. I think when he gets, like you said, when he's locked in defensively, I think the biggest key for Alabama to win consistently, obviously winning the rebound battle, but when he gets down there and gets, like, he got 6 rebounds last game. If he's rebounding from the guard spot like that, it helps the big guys, because most of the time, I mean, you look around, Keon Ellis may be playing the 4 position and he's 6'6", so the next biggest guy might be Bediako, but someone's got to get in there, help rebound. I think JD Davison's, made that a sense of urgency, and he's shown that the last couple of games.
So moving forward for Alabama, kind of 2 different teams. Texas A&M coming in this week. I don't know if they're really even close enough, but they're going to be trying. And Buzz always has them locked in and playing hard. A good defensive team, a physical team, and kind of spurty on offense, but they don't give you anything. They're going to be right there. Alabama has the ceiling to go out there and win this game by 15, but it's one of those, if they're not all clicking, you could see this be a 4-point game late. I wouldn't be shocked that way.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same feel as the South Carolina game, whereas, they want to play slower and control the pace. And if you allow them to do that, then it's going to be, a 60-something game. And like you said, it's going to be a 4-point game there at the end. And it's whoever hits free throws and controls the ball. But one positive out of the South Carolina game was that outside of that first, second half run by South Carolina, Bama controlled that tempo the whole game. And you saw once it got sped up, South Carolina just couldn't keep up with it. And that's what allowed those big runs and Bama to kind of run away with at the end too. But and we'll get more about this. I think that's kind of been Auburn's problem too. They've let teams kind of control the pace. The Tennessee's that's really good defensively, Arkansas really good defensively.
Florida
really good defensively. And when you do that, you get less shots on goal, and your offense has to be more efficient in the half court. And that's one good thing. And that's one area where Bama would struggle too. So seeing them get on those runs and keep, be in control of the pace against South Carolina, and hopefully they'll do it with A&M and just be able to command that control is a really bright positive for this Bama team.
So A&M on Wednesday night, and then going to Baton Rouge on Saturday, and a good CBS national broadcast there. At that point, he'll probably just be playing for seeding, and it could be something though. I mean, all you guys are bunched up so close. I'm not sure who LSU has in the midweek, but that could be the difference in like a 5 and an 8
Arkansas.
or 9 or something.
They go to Arkansas, then we come to them.
So Alabama could have a couple game lead there if they take care of business on Wednesday.
Yeah, and it's and even the top 4 is kind of crazy. Arkansas, they play LSU at home, and then they go to Tennessee to end the season. So that's them 3. Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, they're all tied. That's a toss-up. And then Auburn, as long as they win the next 2, they're good. But if one of them lose, but still.
Yeah, it's kind of weird though. I mean, other than a couple bubble teams like a Florida, and then playing for seeding like in the NCAA tournament, the SEC kind of seeded itself right here. And the top 4 is the most important thing, because you get those 2 buys. You don't play till Friday. Well, I think that's set. I mean, nobody else can jump in there. And Alabama's solidly there at 5, and they can't really jump in. They could fall down a little bit, but they shouldn't. Yeah. So that kind of loses a little luster, I think, in the last week, other than Auburn trying to win this thing and hold everybody off. So we'll go ahead and jump into that game Saturday if y'all want to. I don't know if I want to, but Auburn goes to like Thompson Bowling Arena. I think that's the name of it.
That's it.
Yep.
Out of Tennessee with a 67-62 win. Over 21,000 people there sold out. And it was loud on TV. I almost went. Ed bailed out. So he's not even in here now. He bails out of the game Saturday, and then he
I was about to
bails
say, I
out
thought
of
y'all had big
this.
plans to go.
Well, it was his plan, and I was just along for the ride. So when he bailed out, we decided not to, I guess. But I guess at the end of the day, I've been pretty upset. And
Yeah,
I
been a
know
long drive
Bruce,
home from Knoxville.
well, Bruce Pearl's daughter was talking on like Twitter about how ugly everybody was being to her and stuff. So maybe shouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
But kind of in a way, a typical Auburn game. Auburn goes on a couple runs and looks really good, and they go up 6 maybe at halftime.
Yeah.
Second half hit a lull, went a long time without scoring from the field. They got a couple free throws out of it, but Tennessee was just playing really good defense, and then they got down, and then Auburn made a run like they have a lot this season, got it to a 1-possession game and had a chance there, couldn't get that one stop that they needed down the stretch. Just before we get into the specifics, anything jump out to you guys about the game?
Yeah, one stat jumped off when I was looking at the team stats. Well, actually
Rebounds.
2. Yeah, rebounds. 54 Tennessee, 31 Auburn, plus 23 for Tennessee, 21 offensive boards for Tennessee. That stat really jumped out off the page to me just because of how hard Auburn plays. And I wouldn't expect them to. I mean, yeah, Tennessee's big and they got some good athletes, but at the same time, Auburn can match the athleticism. And I just didn't see that coming in. And also the 3-point percentage, Auburn shooting 20% behind the line and Tennessee shooting 37%. It's just hard to win on the road when you shoot 20% and other teams, above 35%. But those two stats jumped off the page to me.
Yeah, and for me, it was kind of what you mentioned earlier, Al. Is those runs y'all go on without scoring. I think in the second half, I was looking at the play-by-play, and in a 9-minute span, I think y'all scored like 1 or 2 points in a 9-minute span in the second half, and especially on a road against a really good team, that is you're just digging a hole that really nobody can get out of. But for me, I feel like Auburn's at a crossroads where they've kind of got to decide what they want to do. And I know you're probably going to dive into this in a minute, but for me, with Auburn, you can either commit to playing fast, and honestly, I don't know why y'all don't press more, because y'all do so well at turning people over, and it gets that pace going that y'all like, and y'all play well at that. But you either got to commit to that or commit to playing through Jabari and teach everyone else how to move without the ball and, get open. So when he gets double teamed, you're there for a spot up shot or something like that. And it looks like right now you're trying to play both. And that's what leads to these lulls where, all right, let's go 1-on-1 with Jabari and everyone just stand and watch and let him try to score. Or let's try to play fast now and, Green's not in momentum or whatever, and he's not shooting the ball well. So now that's not working. So for me, the biggest takeaway from the game is it looks like y'all are teeter-totting back and forth too much, and really Bruce just needs to commit to one style and go with it.
I think that makes sense. I definitely see what you're saying there, especially as far as defensively and putting that pressure up a little bit earlier, because it does seem to be successful when they do it. And if you want to say that your depth is your strength, then use your depth and play that
exactly.
way.
That was my point is, the whole season Auburn's been big on their depth, and, y'all felt like that's your strong point. Well, use that depth. Play. I mean, that's what, in high school ball around here, that's what the Buckies and Coach Swears at Huntsville, that's what they do. You may play with them for that first half, but he's used his whole bench the whole game. So that fourth quarter, you're going to be tired and you dig deep, especially if you got a short bench. And I think, if you're really positive on your bench and think that's really your strength, I think you should use that to your advantage.
I think you're right. And I think that is the teetering back and forth, because, you get to a point and everybody's like, why is Jabari only playing 25 minutes a game? Well, he's not anymore. He's playing a lot of minutes now, and he's getting a lot of shots. And I don't know. I think that's a really good point. And I think that's probably something they're discussing for sure. You can't just keep saying, I need more out of those guys. You got to give them some opportunities and play that way. But I'm gonna dive into a little bit about that run or that lull, especially. And you guys stop me, and we'll stop and discuss it a little bit, because I think there's this perception out there that they're not playing through Jabari, and that may have been the case early on. That may be the case late in the game in a crucial time, and it has been.
Yeah.
But I really dug into it, and I went and looked during this lull, and I think that's a little bit overblown. I don't think it's the coaching staff not playing through Jabari. I mean, there's even national talking points. I was listening to Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo today, one of the top national basketball podcasts, and they're talking about Jabari. He's a clear number one. And then Russillo's like, but Bill, do you ever watch those games? It's like their guards won't throw him the basketball. And I just started rolling my eyes, because that's such a lazy take to me. Like that,
Yeah,
you saw that last play. Yeah. But if you're not really watching, then you don't know that. And so I dug in, and the run you're talking about, Auburn's up 39-31 with 15:38 left, and actually started a little bit before that, but that's when I started.
Yeah.
And until the 7:19 mark, they did not make a field goal. So that's over 9 minutes of game time. And the score at that point, it still was only 45-43 Tennessee, but you just couldn't play that much defense for that long. So they were, I call them 16 true possessions. And then 3 extra possessions because of getting offensive rebounds. So that's 19 possessions. Of those 19, this is one thing I noticed. Only one of those 19 possessions ended up Auburn going to the free throw line. Now, some teams that may be okay, and maybe an Alabama team that takes a lot of jump shots. For an Auburn team that's trying to work the ball through Jabari and get some touches on the glass, and KD drive into the lane, and even Wynn gets to the free throw line sometimes, that jumped right out to me. That one time to the free throw line, and Jabari knocked him down in 19 possessions. I mean, is that just a Tennessee thing? Talk to me about that.
I think it's kind of, in the second half specifically, and really the game, with them playing through Jabari so much more, how do you get other guys to move and cut and all that, to where because I mean, if you're not attacking the rim, you're not going to draw fouls. And Bama they have a big problem with this too. As far as being aggressive and drawing fouls, but I think that's Auburn's kind of point is, and kind of what I was saying earlier, is how do you play with Jabari being the guy? How do you get these guys on the same page to where we're still efficiently scoring the ball, attacking the rim, and doing all this, but we're doing it through Jabari instead of, through other Wendell Green or Katie Johnson or one of them. And I don't know, that's my take. I think it's just the other guys not knowing how to play without the ball in their hands or something like that, and which leads to less attacks on the rim and less fouls and less free throws in the game.
Riley, when you're playing, is there ever a point, and I don't know how often you got to the free throw line, is there ever a point in the game you're like, well, we just got to get to the free throw line? Is there something I can do to go out there and draw a foul? Or are there other guys on your team that you felt like had that knack? Hey, this is a time where I need to get to the line.
Yeah, I think that's kind of an instinct thing where it's like, hey guys, we went on a drought and we're obviously not hitting shots. So someone's got to get to the free throw line or get to the get an easy lay in to see the ball go in. I think that's kind of the way shooters get readjusted. If they miss a couple at the beginning of the game, they're like, all right, let's try to get a foul, or I just need to see the ball go through the hoop. And then I'm locked back in. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like you said, I don't know what the lull is, but if Auburn goes on those long streaks, someone's got to take over. If it's a KD or if it's a Wendell, got to create for, Kessler. Kessler's a good enough free throw shooter. Someone's got to get on the free throw line, and, that will put an end to those droughts.
So in those 19 possessions, 5 of them ended in turnover. That's too many for that long of a stretch. Zepp had 1, KD had 1, Cambridge had 1, Flanagan had 1, and one of them was a shot clock violation on just a disaster of a possession altogether. So Wendell Green didn't have 1 there. Jabari didn't have 1. Guys, there, your best players didn't have 1. But I really broke it down to, and if there was any kind of secondary break or transition at all, I didn't write it down. Because there's a couple times that Wendell came off a high ball screen, or KD just took it to the rim or whatever. That's weird that KD didn't get to the line at any when he was in most of that time. But there were 10 true possessions of half-court basketball. You go up, you make a play call. I'm not talking about baseline out of bounds stuff. I'm not talking about sideline out of bounds. I'm talking about 10 true possessions. 3 of those 10, Jabari was not on the floor. So I want to kind of break down on what Auburn did when Jabari was not on the floor. First one, they run an ISO play for KD Johnson on the wing. It's a play that's worked all year where he just gets on the wing. He drives hard with his left hand. Kessler illegally clears the guy out of the lane. Everybody runs that play. They never call it. And it's been money all year. And at worst case scenario, KD gets even with a guy and he just jumps into him and usually gets the call.
Yeah.
Well, they ran the play. It looked normal. And this Ziegler guy for Tennessee, he's a pest out there.
Hey,
he's awesome. He shut it down. He didn't let KD get by him. He just physically, he's a little guy, but he's quick and he's kind of strong for his size. He stayed in front of KD Johnson. When I've been watching Auburn games all year and a lot of guys can't do it, he busted that play up, but KD didn't panic. He's gotten a little bit better in that situation. He kicks it out to Allen Flanigan on the wing. And Allen Flanigan, instead of stepping into a 3 and knocking it down or driving a closeout, he's not confident in the shot. Then he dribbles with his right hand and steps back to the corner and takes a step back corner 3 that bricks like crazy. And it's just like, okay, we decided to run a play for KD. It didn't work. KD did the right thing. You've got to have role players stepping in and at least taking the normal shot. I mean, right? Mm-hmm. You got to know that's your role at that point. And that's the problem. It's not some of these guys don't know what their role is because they think they can do other things, which they can. But at some point, you got to do the role. The role is to step in and shoot that basketball.
Oh, yeah. No coach is going to draw up a play for you to dribble with your weak hand and step back and shoot a 3.
With like probably 7 or 8 seconds on the shot clock right there. Just take the shot. They're not going to be mad at you for taking that shot. I guarantee it.
They will be mad for that weak hand step back, though.
Yeah. So everybody's wanting to know what's wrong with Auburn's half-court offense. There's your problem. Your old guy didn't do his role. Yeah, the play call didn't work. Great defense by Tennessee. And again, you're going to hear me say great defense by Tennessee. They're really good, especially the Ziegler guy.
Yeah.
Second time without Jabari. They run a horn set with Jalen and Cardwell at the top. And Wendell Green comes off one, and then he like splits the other one, gets all the way to the rim, goes up and gets a shot blocked by Fulkerson, I think. Little guard going to the rim. He gets there, gets a shot blocked. You know, that's not a bad play call. I feel like with Jabari not on the floor, you get downhill.
Yeah.
Auburn gets the offensive rebound. Allen Flanigan gets the offensive rebound, and then he centers the ball in the middle and like calls Jalen Williams to come up and set him a ball screen with like 6 seconds on the shot clock. He gets his pocket picked. So again, there was no real. And let me ask you this, Riley. If you know there's a short clock like that, is there like an automatic, what do I do? I know some people like try to get the ball to your point guard at the top real quick, or is there just, I got to go make a play. I got an offensive rebound with 7 or 8 seconds on the shot clock.
So if there's like 3 seconds on the shot clock, I think that's kind of like go make a play. But if there's enough time for you to call a pick and roll, I think you kind of, that's where you go back to the roles. It's like, dude, these guys, does everybody know their role? So I'm getting it to maybe a Wendell Green, or not saying he's not capable. I mean, he could come off a ball screen, but I'm not sure if that's your best option in that scenario.
Well, maybe the spacing was all messed up. There's people just kind of everywhere, and that's why he got his pocket pick. Somebody came from behind him because it wasn't spaced out right.
Maybe you don't call and then we worked on that. I remember we used to work on that. It's like ISO. I mean, you got to go make a play yourself. You don't need a ball screen. The court's chaotic. Nobody can come set a screen. So beat your man one-on-one or just get a shot up on the glass so we can get a chance to get offense rebound.
100%. So that's your second possession of Jabari. The coaching staff made a decent call. You got to the rim. You got an offensive rebound, and you still end up turning it over. So then Tennessee gets a run out on the other side.
Yeah.
And then the third possession, it's normal basketball. They call a high ball screen for Wendell Green. Ziegler goes under the screen, and Wynn takes it, and he misses it. I mean, that's a shot that they've given him the green light to take. And if you're going to run that offense, he's got to shoot that ball. The guy goes under, you got to shoot it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unless you're just super cold.
Yeah. No, I think, and especially with Jabari out of the game, someone's got to step up in that void. I mean, I understand Wendell Green went 2 of 15 for the game and 1 of 7 from 3. But it's better than a turnover. I mean, we used to say you can rebound and miss. You can't rebound when they're going on the other end and shoot a layup.
I told somebody that playing pickup basketball last night. He turned it over one more time. I said, "Hey, if you just shoot it, then you ain't gonna turn it over, buddy."
Yeah.
He didn't respond to me on that. So those are your 3 possessions, and that's why you see it's kind of haphazard when he's not in the game. But you did what you wanted to do, and you just didn't score, and your guys didn't step up and do their role. So here, let's jump into the 7 possessions that Jabari was out there. So this is during the lull. half court offense. Jabari's in the game. What do you do? First play, completely a blown up play. Kentucky is really pressuring the guy with the ball. They're running a lot of high ball screen stuff, and then they're like kind of ghost screening out of it, that quick slip, because everybody's showing so much, trying to shut that down now. They are making adjustments. The coaching staff is seeing it. So they pass it to Kessler at like the top of the key. And then they were trying to set a pin down Jabari on Allen Flanagan coming to his left hand. And they're going to try to catch it with Kessler and dump that down. I think that's a pretty good play call right there. That it's there and they don't throw it because the timing's messed up. And the Tennessee defense just wrecked it up. And so Kessler's like 12 seconds on the shot clock. He ends up kicking it back out to Wendell Green. He takes a deep three and misses. I mean, that was the offense because there wasn't some kind of, I guess the next thing they've got to work on late clock doing something a little bit better. And you're going to continue to see that in this, where just because that first option went there, you got to have something late clock that works.
I was going to say, well, what's your secondary option if your first option doesn't
There
pan
wasn't
out?
one. And Wendell was open enough that it didn't look like a bad shot. You know, he just shot the ball really poorly. And so then it looks like a bad shot afterwards.
Yeah.
So you ran a play with action with Jabari, almost as like a little decoy, but you got Allen Flanagan left hand. That's a pretty good move usually. Next time down, they run the Jabari isolation play on the elbow. He catches it, clean looks, and misses. So that's 2 possessions down. One of them they played through Jabari. One of them they ran a flex action or whatever. Next time down, they run the same pretty much Jabari elbow ISO, but then Wendell Green, after he passes him the ball, actually, I think they pop out the big, like in a flex action. They throw it to him. Like Jabari will set like a fake back screen, flex screen, and then come up to the top, catch it. Wendell Green goes back door. He hands it to him. He's got a step on Ziegler, and Ziegler beats him to the spot and like bumps him. And Wendell goes kind of thinks he's too far behind the basket. So this play worked, but Tennessee's defense and Ziegler being really good made it look like it didn't work. But Wendell doesn't turn the ball over. He kicks it to Devin Cambridge in the corner for a 3. When your job is to step in and make that shot, he steps in. He's not confident because he hasn't been shooting the ball well and tries to throw it down underneath to Cardwell. And there's a guy right in the way. It's like a quarterback that doesn't see the linebacker standing there. I mean, throws it right to Fulkerson.
Yeah, I saw that.
So you make a play call for Jabari, and then there's a counter to it. Everything works perfectly. Tennessee has great defense. You have to adjust. You kick it to a roll guy in the corner, shoot the basketball. I mean, what else do you ask of your coaching staff then to set that up?
Exactly. And, you know, who cares? Who cares if you hit the side of the backboard? At least you're shooting it and letting people go rebound instead of throwing it to their guy and
turnovers.
Let Cardwell stand down there and go get that rebound. I mean, they never pass in the basketball. Why would you do that? So anyway,
I was about to say Cardwell's on the court for one reason. It's energy and catching hoops. It's not throw it to him and let him go to work.
And Tennessee's got some big dudes down there.
Yeah.
Obviously, he got Jabari shook. I don't know that guy's name. That big old guy. He's a cheap shot. He's throwing little elbows and stuff. Let me see. I got it pulled up.
I do or something.
Plavsic.
Yeah.
Not a fan of that guy.
Yeah,
I can't even say what Jabari
shot.
said to him. And that makes Fulkerson not even look like a bad guy when he's out there.
Yeah.
So, you know, 3 plays. They're all there in a way that are not executed. Next one. Ran an action for Jabari to be coming off that flex screen. So they popped. It was either Cardwell or Kessler. I'm not sure who's in the game. They set a flex screen for Jabari. He's there, kind of not there. He's got a guy on his hip, and Cardwell just doesn't make the pass to him. He doesn't feel confident, but they do finally get something. Cardwell kicks it out to Wendell Green. Jabari comes up and sets that screen. Wendell gets downhill off of it because they're so worried about the pop. He gets fouled. He didn't get to the free throw line, but he gets fouled. So that was to me like, hey, I don't know if he drew it up that way, but that was that second option that you work on late in the clock. And I like Jabari setting the pick and pop. I've been calling that all year. What are y'all's thoughts on why Auburn is so adamant on the big setting the ball screen instead of Jabari?
I guess because he can shoot it a little bit. And, you know, they like that double screen where, you know, you have a Cambridge or somebody screening or a guard screening for Kessler after he set that screen and you get that lob play that's been working all year. But I don't know. I really like Jabari setting that screen because, like you said, it takes away, you know, when Kessler setting that screen, his guy's not going to respect Kessler stepping out and shooting that 3. But if Jabari setting that screen, you know, his guy isn't leaving him. Or if he does, it's a hard switch. And then you got Jabari on whoever's guarding Wendell Green, which should be a good matchup. in Auburn's favor. But
Yeah, I think they've done it the way they like it with the fives because kind of what we talked about. Well, I talked about earlier in the week. I think they've got that lob so often, at the beginning of the season. Obviously, people make changes. They're going to stop the lob from Wendell Green to Kessler. And that's just something they've ran. Late clock with Wendell, he always calls Kessler out. I think it's a good matchup for Wendell. I think because Wendell, he's going to match up against the other five. Obviously, Wendell's pretty quick, and it's hard for them to stay in front if they were to switch late clock, but it also creates that mismatch with a 7-footer down on the point guard. But I'm with you. I think they should. I think it would mix up some stuff. Throw some Jabari screens, with ball screen in there, pop him. Obviously, they may switch. So Jabari may get on a point guard, then you take him to the post. But I mean, create some other opportunities. Other teams are really good at game planning. They see what works and what don't work, and they're going to try what works. Obviously,
and there's
I wonder
no
if
rule
it's
saying you
good.
can't do both of them too.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, I agree.
you
Mix
got
it
both
up.
of 'em.
And I did wonder, like, if you're setting it there with Jabari, I mean, I know he's going to pop, but there are times where Auburn doesn't have good enough other shooters on the floor where you're not filling both corners or a wing on the backside with a shooter if they're not going to respect a Cambridge or a Flanagan or sometimes KD when he's not shooting the ball, or if Zepp's out there and they're not respecting him. If you're already clogging up with Kessler's guy and then his guy, and then Cambridge's guy sitting in the lane too, that might make it a little more difficult.
sure.
But I don't know. I think that's definitely something. And if they're gonna keep running those ghost screens because everybody's playing so high, let's get a 4-man in there who can then drive that sucker, because Kessler's got some room when he catches it, but he's like kind of awkward. What do? Do I drive it from the top of the key? So I think that's probably something they're looking at right now. Let's see. And then so that is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 of the 7 plays on half court offense everybody's complaining about. They're all there. You don't score on any of them. 3 of them, you get your action and it just doesn't work. One of them, the play gets blown up. The next 3, this is so really my first 3, I'm blaming it on your role players, whether it be a Cambridge, a Flanagan, not being able to step in and make a shot or just make a quick, decisive move.
Yeah.
Do a pull-up jumper. I don't care. Alan Flanagan, take one hard left-hand dribble and rise up, shoot it. At least you're shooting it, and you can get back on defense, like y'all said. So that's the first half of this lull, and that's the issue. Second half of this lull, Zepp Jasper, who I'm a big fan of, comes into the game for Wendell Green. He's playing point guard, and 3 possessions in a row, the offense gets blown up by Zakai Ziegler, whoever this dude is, 3-star, nobody recruit, just locked him up and forced him away from ball screens, forced him away where he couldn't start the offense where he wanted to. And 3 possessions in a row were basically turnovers, or pretty much turnovers, all based on your point guard couldn't you getting you into offense.
That's crazy. That's when Tennessee came to Bama, first game of SEC play, Zakai Ziegler had to start, freshman had to start, and I texted a buddy of mine that's a Tennessee fan, said, I love this dude. Like, this dude is fun to watch play. He's smallest guy on the court out there. Section maybe when Wendell's out there, but dude plays hard. He's quick. He's not a great shooter, but he knocks down big shots when he needs to, and he's fun to watch play.
4 of the 10 possessions he shut down on his own. Nobody else. He shut it down on his own.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
and the
crazy.
5th one was actually another good play. Josiah James.
Yeah.
He's long. He's a good
He's
defender. He was on Zepp, and Zepp was trying to get the ball to Jabari at the elbow, and he just kind of sagged and threw his hand up and blocked it and ended up getting a run out the other way. I mean, Tennessee, there are definitely some of these are Auburn issues, no doubt, but I'm giving them a lot of credit for this defense and how quick they are and linked and different guys they can throw at you. They can throw 2 big guys out there. They can throw 2 point guards out there. Late in the game, they're playing Ziegler and is it Chandler, their other guy?
Yeah.
And it feels like it took a lot of pressure off Chandler. And so then he gets the big bucket late, like he's got fresh legs.
And really late in the game, they had 3 point guards. They had Vescovy out there, and then they had Chandler and Ziegler.
That's a weird matchup for people.
It is.
Because then they would throw out Fulkerson and Plazvich or whatever with those guys. There wouldn't be a wing on the court.
Exactly. It's a weird dynamic, but Barnes, he's kind of figured out that lineup and who works best with who, and I guess I feel like that's why they've been playing so well here lately.
So that was my research project. That if you're worried about Auburn's offense, number one, it's your role players have to step up and do their role, and either they got to know it or they got to have the confidence to do it, or play somebody else and figure out something else. And number two, when Wendell Green's not on the floor, you've got to get somebody that can get you into offense. And maybe it was just a bad night for Zep, but we've seen other times he's struggled against really quick defenders like him.
Yeah.
And then you look, but then I don't know if it gets Auburn so out of their rhythm. It kind of like Alabama when they're not scoring. I look up and Ziegler is running his offense from wherever he wants to run the offense. And Zep's the one guarding him. He's not, I mean, he's there, but he's not really doing anything. And it's like, that thing just starts rolling. That momentum starts rolling, and every possession for Auburn is super difficult. And Tennessee is literally getting the ball wherever they want. They just weren't shooting very well, or they would have won more earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bruce Pearl's a lot like Nate Oates in this aspect where, they're not big on calling timeouts to stop momentum of another team. And when you're in another team's gym, those are big timeouts. I know not everyone's for using timeouts for stopping momentum, but especially teams that want to play fast. But if you're not playing fast, you're not controlling the momentum or anything like that, call a timeout and at least just make them go sit down and for a minute and come back out and have to restart or something. But yeah, it's tough when you're on a drought like that and the other team's locking you up defensively.
All in all, I think most of that is fixable stuff, and you lose by 5 on the road when you got out rebounded by 23 and you shot less than 20% from the 3-point line. Your point guard goes 2 for 15. So to me, like, it's okay. You can fix some of the stuff. It's going to happen. Again, an incredible effort by Jabari Smith to get everybody back in the game. 27 points, 8 rebounds. One other just offensive note a little bit. And Riley, tell me when you guys y'all didn't have a lot of fives that scored the basketball very much either. I feel like there are some opportunities to work in some stuff for Walker Kessler that they're not really doing around the rim. Y'all have any thoughts on going to your 5-man a little bit more?
Yeah, I think talent. I know they run a little lob play for him where they come off a pick and roll and they set a bat screen on his man and kind of give him an easy lob. But there's some plays they can run for him to get touches, especially early in the game to get him active. I think it's always big. I know Coach Avery used to say, I can't remember the player's name he had in San Antonio, I believe, or maybe New Jersey. Either way, they always ran a play for him. I mean, I don't know if it was Dallas or when he was in the Nets, but he always ran a play for him to get him a touch. He knew he wasn't going to get a lot of touches because it might have been Dallas, because I think they had Dirk and all those guys. So
sounds like an Eric Dampier or something.
Yeah, it might have been. He played hard and was a good center, but they knew he wasn't going to get a lot of touches. So he always ran him a play at the beginning of the game just to get him active and get him into the flow of the game, which, I mean, that's something they could do for Kessler. I think because he will get lost out there. I will say, watching the game, if they're boxing him out, he's the only one going to the offensive board.
He's not making an impact.
Shooting a 3 and everybody's watching. Nobody, when Tennessee has 2 big guys out there that can rebound with anybody, he does get lost out there. I think, it's crazy to me. Tennessee had 18 turnovers, but I'm not sure how many led to points in transition, but it seemed to me Tennessee got back really, really well. And that's how Auburn gives on them runs. I mean, they'll get a steal, and then there's a oop, there's a dunk, there's a layup, and then the momentum swifted.
That did make an impact. That was mostly early, kind of late in that first half when Auburn went on a run, and then late in the game when Auburn went on that run. I feel like those did kind of have an impact, but it weren't consistent. It was like 3 at a time and then 3 at a time again. So I don't know how many. I was trying to see if I could pull that up, but I'm not seeing points off turnovers on that.
Yeah.
But tough game. Tennessee's undefeated at home. They beat Arizona, I think, at home. They blew out Kentucky at home.
Mm-hmm.
So, tough game. I think if you're an Auburn fan or if you're Bruce Pearl and they told you you've got a game against Mississippi State and a game against South Carolina, you win them both, you're the outright SEC champion. I think before the year you'd have taken that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Nobody likes losing 3 out of their last 6, but then again, everyone projected Auburn to be a 5 seed, and they went on that big run. Now it's time to find that mojo y'all had at the beginning of SEC play and get that thing back going now for SEC tournament, then NCAA tournament.
All right, let me read y'all a little pre-conference magazine before we go, because I pulled out I think it was my Athlon, and it's sometimes funny to go back and look and see what the predictions were. Here's what they predicted the SEC to be: number 1, Kentucky; number 2, Arkansas; number 3, Tennessee; number 4, Alabama; number 5, Auburn. Other than Auburn a little low, they had that pretty dang good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They had
that
a
is pretty
State
accurate.
6, which is kind of there. LSU 7, 4 to 8. I mean, I feel like everybody kind of did what they were supposed
Pretty
to.
similar.
Missouri 9, Ole Miss 10, A&M 11, South Carolina 12. South Carolina has had a much better season than 12, I would say.
Especially
Vandy
SEC play.
13. They've picked it up a little bit. And then Georgia 14. What about they about to fire Tom Crean? Have y'all been seeing this stuff?
I don't know how he stays, when
Yeah.
you've won one conference game and like 6 overall, like that's rough. And you're not recruiting well.
And all your best players leave after each year.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Tough look.
And it's not that they're leaving and going cross country. They're going to your SEC rivals. So
transfer portal is the worst thing that happened to Tom Crean. I can tell you that. And I want to mention the first team because some of these, like, they put freshmen on the first team or second team sometime. Like Kennedy Chandler was first team All SEC on here. I mean, I don't see it really with him. I know he's quick and he made some really nice plays at the rim, some layups that were kind of weird finishes. But what am I missing about Kennedy Chandler?
I don't know. I think he's kind of been inconsistent. He had an injury early in the season in SEC play, and from the games I've seen, he's good. And don't get me wrong, like he makes that team better, but I feel like he's still a freshman and he's still going through that growing pains playing the SEC play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
First team All SEC preseason was Kennedy Chandler, Kellen Grady. Pretty good pick. Grady only got 3 shots up on Saturday. I don't know what Arkansas did. That's
they are
incredible.
a different team when they let him fire that ball up.
Get Wheeler,
second half play against Alabama
out of there.
That second half play against Alabama was unreal. I don't know why they don't play through him more.
Shout out. Hey, Cody made the call. He said last week that maybe it's better just to let him shoot the ball and everybody else play around him.
Exactly.
Scottie Pippen Jr. was first team preseason. He's had a fantastic year. He gets the free throw line as well as anybody I've seen in a while. JQ was first team All SEC. Up and down year. I mean, he's had a good year. I don't think he'll probably make first team All SEC. Would y'all think so? Postseason?
I don't know.
I don't know.
He was on
if they only have 5 guys on it.
Yeah. He was up for that. What's the point guard award they do nationally?
Bob Cousy.
Yeah,
Cousy.
he was like
Cousy.
a top 10 finalist for that. So I guess
I saw Wheeler stayed in there.
Yeah,
Wendell and Quinterly.
JD Note was in there.
And then the 5th one was Jabari, first team All SEC. So I think
there's going to be
Pippen
it's going to
and Jabari
be
get there.
it's going to be because Oscar's going to be on there. He's taking somebody's spot off there.
Yeah,
sure. He's going to get player of the year. I think just by his stats. Not saying that anybody else shouldn't, but I mean when you put up 16 and 15 or whatever he's doing a game, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, 1 point in the second half against Arkansas. It was kind of earlier, midway. He was
controlling the whole game.
16 already in that. I was like, good God.
Who's got a better chance at first team, JD Note or Iverson Molinar?
I think Note. Note's been
just the
playing
way
unreal.
their team's doing a lot better.
I agree. So is Grady a first team All SEC guy?
No,
he's not, right?
No, he's
against
the one that was
Alabama.
Like,
he was.
I was about to say he looked like player of the year against Alabama, but no, he hasn't been consistent enough. I don't think.
So I think it's going to be. I think Jabari will be on there. I think Oscar will be on there. I think
Pippen.
Note, Pippen, and I mean that 5th spot is up for grabs.
Shackford get a chance?
Maybe Shaq. I know he's averaging around 17 a game, but who knows who they put up in there? I mean, they may go somebody from
Wheeler.
Tennessee. But I don't know one player that's just averaging a lot of points from Tennessee. They kind of do it by committee. They have a bunch of guys.
Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, to me, Ziegler was the best player the couple times I've watched him. I mean, also preseason second team, they had JD Davison, Josiah James, Walker Kessler. I think he'll probably be second team with Sheboy getting the first team nod. Yeah. Molinar and Shackelford. I think all those guys have a chance to be second team. And then third team, Riley's favorite player, Colin Castleton, Darius Days. Days hadn't really had the year everybody was expecting.
No.
Hey, Eason might be first team. That dude gets buckets.
Yeah, we couldn't stop him. If he could learn how to stay out of foul trouble, he'd be one heck of a player.
He's a good ISO player. My goodness.
And Penson's had a good year too. When he's been healthy, he's had a really good year.
They looked really good the other night with him back. who was it they were playing?
Kentucky.
Yeah, he looked unstoppable in that first half.
Castleton Days, Alan Flanagan, who obviously will not be there. Ty Washington, who I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know what they'll do with him. He's going to be missing some games, and I don't know. And then some guy from Arkansas, Umude.
Oh yeah, Stanley Amude.
He ain't going to be in the top 3.
I think Jalen Williams, he's going to be somewhere on there. He's so good.
If you're doing just one big, and I'm not saying they do it this way, but if you're doing just one big and you give Sheboy 1, Kessler 2, Castleton or Jalen Williams at 3, ooh, I think they'll figure out a way to get all those guys on there. But if you had to pick, what do you got?
Stat wise, I know Castleton's probably got better stats, but the way that he's, the way that Arkansas's played and the way that Jalen Williams has impacted the game, man, he took 4 charges in one half the other night. I'm like, my goodness, he just helps them win in so many different ways. So it'd be interesting.
Anybody else jump out to y'all? Anybody from the bottom group? Anybody played really well? Nobody from Ole Miss. Nobody from Missouri.
A&M hadn't really had anybody stick out, I don't believe.
That's the reason they're losing games. Georgia, no.
South Carolina, nobody from South Carolina.
Kusnar played really well for South Carolina
until the Alabama game.
Yeah.
What about Missouri? What about
Kobe Brown?
Kobe Brown.
I don't know. Against Alabama again. A couple guys played really well against Alabama. A couple guys played awful. I don't know. Y'all shut down some guys and some guys not. It's like if you've got a little size, a little length, and you can score, you give Alabama some trouble sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is
we can wrap
it
up there. What y'all got?
I was just gonna say it's kind of crazy. Ole Miss, they're kind of highly ranked on the preseason. They've kind of been they've had a drop off. They've
Kermit's
been
got a hot seat apparently right now.
Yeah,
well, they've had some injuries. You know how much better they would have been with that point guard? Because point guard Ruffin.
Joyner's missed a lot of games too.
They've never played together this year, and so with those two playing together, I think they would be a lot better, a lot more competitive. But
they just don't defend. They don't play any defense.
Because that big guy, I know he's like 26, but he's actually good.
He's a brute down there, man. If he was in another conference, he'd be dominating for sure.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And Breakfield's gotten hot a couple times. I think he's probably a disappointment though. 5-star coming in from Duke. I don't know. I think he's a little disappointing. He's a little soft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a weird shot.
Yeah, he does have his broke shot for sure. Y'all got anything else?
Nope.
That's it.
All right.
Wednesday night.
Roadkill Saturday, coming up Wednesday night. Is it 6:00 Alabama A&M?
Yeah.
SEC Network.
Okay. Because I think Auburn's after that at 8 against Mississippi State. Any quick thoughts on Auburn at Mississippi State? I mean, they've got some guys.
Tough place to play. I'm not saying Auburn's going to lose, but I think it could be a tough game. I mean, there's probably not going to be a lot of fans in the stands. I mean, there may be Auburn being number 5, but a lot of times Mississippi State don't draw a lot of fans.
Baseball season at State now.
I'm telling you, it's tough. It's tough to play there, and they'll try to make it a slower pace, and they're going to play.
That's what I was going to ask y'all. Do they
play a big guy?
Do they have the guys like Florida and Tennessee to try to lock down? I mean, I don't know.
Their guards aren't as big, but they have Tolo Smith and Garrison Brooks. Some big guys.
Played really well off the bench last game. He had like 20-something points.
And DJ Jeffries, he's hit or miss on how well he's playing. Yeah. And of course, Iverson Molinar's he's the guy, and they got a couple of guys that can score the ball.
How's the guy from Michigan State? Watts.
Rocker Watts. He's out for the season.
He's been hurt, hasn't he?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's messed up his arm or something like that.
Howland's getting some heat too, it sounds like.
I saw a thing where Ole Miss, Georgia, Missouri, and Mississippi State, all those coaches are kind of, their seats are hot or they're getting warm. So
was Howland at Mississippi State when you went to Alabama, Riley?
He was not there. He was there after 1 year. Rick Ray was the coach.
Rick Ray.
And he was there my freshman year. And then Howland came in sophomore year.
And then you're talking about Conzo. I remember he recruited you pretty heavy. You liked him at Tennessee, didn't you?
He was at Tennessee. Then he jumped to Cal. And then he came to Missouri. I want to say he wasn't there my freshman year, maybe my sophomore year as well, because they had what was the guy's name?
Kim Anderson.
Kim Anderson.
Yeah, they lost like 100 games in a row or something. He's like the D2 legend in Missouri.
Yeah.
That'd be like hiring an old Bucky at Alabama, and he was like ended up being terrible, like something like that.
I'm telling
Oh,
you.
but yeah, hey, what about Sanford getting some big wins too?
20
Hey, who
win
did they-
season.
Rolling.
Who did they beat the other night? Well, it was a packed house. Who was
They-
that?
They beat Furman the other
Furman?
night.
Fireman. That's right. It was Fireman.
Yeah, UAB having a good season. Sanford having a good season. Good for
JSU.
the state. Yeah, JSU. Good for the state. We'll wrap up there. I know we've gone kind of long. Just that was a big weekend to talk about. A lot of stuff going on. We'll do another one. I guess probably a little preseason or preview of the SEC tournament.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
next week.
We'll jump in there and give you some Tampa tidbits. I guess Ed's too good for us now. Y'all go check out his interview with KT Harrell.
I saw
he's
that.
big
Well, I
time
say, he left us.
now. Y'all check that out, and y'all go check out the high school basketball stuff I did with Kenny Hill. I think you'll really like that 20-minute shot clock on YouTube. If nothing else, we'll see you guys before Tampa.
All right.